If you're listening to this during an apocalypse or after an apocalypse, I suppose, when the dust has settled, you're in your nuclear fallout shelter, you're sitting in there, you've downloaded some podcast before everything went to shit. You downloaded this, you've never heard this podcast before, you just happen to have downloaded it just before you went into your nuclear fallout shelter and you've nothing else on your phone. And you think, oh Christ, this is all I have left of the world. The world is being destroyed as far as I know. The whole world is being destroyed in a cloud of black smoke and dust and muck and filth and bombs and nuclear stuff. There's nuclear bombs flying through the air in all directions. The shit has hit the fan. You have some system that cleans everything from your toilet and turns it into drinkable water. I suppose everything is drinkable if you just drink it. And everything is inedible if you just eat it. Drug users like to talk about edibles. They say, I'm going to have an edible today. Usually being something like a mushroom or a brownie that's got drugs baked into it. They say, I'm going to eat an edible. It's going to be great. Because I'm a child and eat everything in the form of a sweet or a brownie or something. You can't just take a pill. No, proper drug users. Now, I don't do drugs, but if I was a proper drug user, I would never be seen dead eating one of these edibles, these muffins or brownies or these. They have illicit drugs that they sell and they disguise them as popular brands of sweets or candies or chocolates. They have fake M&Ms and you buy them off your drug dealer, I understand. And they look like that and they're edibles. That's nonsense. Well, firstly, everything's edible. A potato is edible. Your cat's fur is edible. A piece of paper is edible. Toilet paper is edible. Everything is edible if you just eat it. Anything that you can put in your mouth and chew is edible. That doesn't mean you should eat it. No. Secondly, you're doing drugs. Do drugs properly. Get them in the form of a pill. A big bottle of pills, like your father used to take. Be a man about it, or a woman, wherever you are. Get your drugs in the form of pills in a bottle with a label on them, with your name printed on them, because they're designed specially for you. If I was a drug user, I would give my business to any drug dealer who served up his drugs in proper grown-up bottles like you get from a pharmacist, like your doctor would recommend, with a little prescription on it. I know it's a fake prescription, but put that on it anyway. Oh, you're probably listening to this in some country where they have all that legal now. So you do have a prescription sticker on your bottles of drugs, do you? Or else you're getting edible drug with a fake M&M type brand on them because you're a child. You're an adult child. So it has some big smiley cartoon face on the front. It's called probably Sugar Puffs or something. And then on the back you have a prescription label because those are legal in your country. You look ridiculous. Can you imagine if your father came home from the doctor with his heart pills that he takes to keep alive and you had a smiley face on the front and some fake brand on them? No, your father would say, how dare this doctor treat me like a child? Give me proper drugs. Drugs should look scary. Should look like a big scary pill that you're afraid you can't even swallow. But of course you can. It's designed to be swallowed. Drugs should come in a capsule that looks like a bullet. It's got red and white bullet. It should work the same way too. I know you talk about shooting up. That's a different thing. You're going to cause confusion now by saying drugs should look like a bullet. No, a pill capsule should look like a bullet. It should be that shape. I'm not saying you should shoot it up into your veins or anything. No, don't be shooting things into your veins unless prescribed by a doctor for a proper thing. Maybe you're a diabetic or whatever. I don't know. Do diabetics have to shoot up? I think they do. You have to shoot up into their veins and then you go and mock these people by getting your heroin and shooting that up into your veins and you put yourself on an equal footing with them. You're not on an equal footing with them. You're on some child's play drug that you've got addicted to. If you're shooting heroin, you're a child. You might as well be eating candy. You've got hooked on Coca-Cola or something. You're like one of those children who every day you come across these 5 or 6 year old children. Their parents will tell you, oh, the only thing they'll eat for dinner is chicken nuggets, potato waffles and spaghetti hoops. They have exactly the same thing every day. And if you're having heroin every day, you're just the same as those children. You're just as infantile as them. Absolutely ridiculous. If you have a medical need for something, get some proper drugs from a doctor. Tell them, I've got some problem, I want drugs from it. I want it to come in a proper round bottle that you flip open like a cool detective on the television who's having a stressful day. They take out a bottle out of their pocket. Columbo or someone, he'll take a bottle out of his pocket and you flip open the lid with one thumb and one hand and you'll throw some pills into his pocket and swallow them. He'll be clutching his chest while he's doing this. Then he swallows the pills and he just gets on with his day. That's how you do drugs. Maybe I'm imagining. I never watched Columbo, but I'm sure I've seen. It can't be just House MD that happens. The medical procedural drama House MD. Dr. House is addicted to painkillers, so he's always shown doing drugs. I'm sure I've seen it on other detective shows where these guys, they're having a stressful day. Some cop is having a stressful day and he'll pop these pills. Where have I seen that? Now that I think about it, I've said this before, and I can't imagine now that a normal television detective show would just have these people popping pills all the time when they're stressed. Maybe it's just one or two films that I've seen it on and I imagine that it's everywhere. I don't know. How did I start this? Into your head! 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 Once upon a time, there was a Doug. A Doug. A Doug. A Doug. A Doug. A Doug. A dog. A dog. A dog. Basically a dog. And this dog, he was walking along the footpath one day. Or the sidewalk, as you Americans call it. You like to call it a sidewalk. Well, I don't call it a sidewalk. Even though shows like Sesame Street have tried to drill these Americanisms into me. Half a century of television watching, I've had this word sidewalk thrust at me every time I turn on my television for the past 50 years. And still I say footpaths because that's what they are here. They're footpaths. It's not a sidewalk. A sidewalk is what you would have if there was no space for a footpath and every road was a dugout just wide enough for cars. A sidewalk is what you would call the footpath if it was a shelf up on the side wall of this dugout, not level with the cars at all. It's up above them. Not a normal footpath. It's on the side of the main thoroughfare at the same level or just a few inches above it at curb level. No, that's not a sidewalk. That's a footpath. It's a pathway along which those travelling by foot can go, safe in the knowledge that they're not going to be run over by some car, safe in the knowledge that if they're run over by some bicycle that's not supposed to be there, at least they'll be in the right. They can say, oh, my head was chopped off by this cyclist, but at least I know the cyclist was breaking the law and not me, and that's the important thing. That's the important thing. If you're going to be run over by a cyclist or a vehicle or a greyhound, not a greyhound bus, we don't have those here either. Although we do have this coach operator, Bus Éireann, that for some reason has adopted a red setter as its logo, clearly trying to copy Greyhound. And it's not Greyhound. Bus Éireann is not Greyhound. It's a government-owned bus company. It's not Greyhound, and there are no sidewalks here. I suppose what you could refer to as sidewalks are those things they put up in front of billboards at the side of a motorway. Sometimes they have very tall, high billboards and things that need maintenance. And they put a metal platform that you walk along. Something like that would be a sidewalk. Even though it's bollocks. What was that? It's a spoon. I've stepped up my coffee consumption in here by bringing a large spoon in case I need to re-stir this. Because it's an instant cappuccino, which is very powdery and needs to be stirred very, 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 very well. It's got powdered milk or whatever they put in there. If you don't stir it properly, you end up tasting lumps of porridge or something in your coffee. It's not nice, so I bring the spoon in just in case I need to stir this. I wasn't with the spoon, though. I just dropped it. I didn't drop it. I wasn't holding it. I knocked it over, trying to pull the towel out from underneath it. Like some sort of magician, I just pull out a towel there and I expect it to come away without any consequences. No, there's always consequences of these things. I forget, but there are consequences. And when you try to pull a towel out from the corner of the desk there without looking while you're recording a podcast, you have to expect that unexpected things will happen. Expect the unexpected. Turn yourself into a nervous wreck and think, right, I'm going to do this perfectly normal day-to-day act here of removing a towel from the corner of the desk with a view to putting it on my lap so that I won't spill any more coffee in the delicate area of my upper leg. But no, I do that and hear crash, bang, wallop, and this huge spoon that I put there a few minutes ago is falling to the floor, to the sidewalk that you Americans have. Do you even have them on motorways? You probably don't. Neither do we. We have hard shoulders. You probably have hard shoulders there. You probably resent them, do you? You probably resent having hard shoulders. They're probably a European invention. At the side of motorways and highways, you have a little lane at the side, a breakdown lane, you probably call that. It's a hard shoulder. It's the shoulder of the road. It's called hard because it's being tarmacked. It has a proper surface on it. But it's not for regular driving. When they have a puncture, they pull into the hard shoulder. They ring up the Automobile Association, who sells them. Certainly, we can come out and get you and bring you to a garage, as long as you sign up for a year's membership now and also sign over your firstborn cat to us. That's what they do. We did that a couple of years ago when I accidentally... What did I accidentally do? Oh, yeah, wait a minute, no. I think I accidentally... Oh, yes, I left the lights on in the car. I don't even drive. I was cleaning out the car for an upcoming service or something. I was hoovering the car, doing an absolutely fantastic job of it, I might add. Cleaning out the car, and then I closed the car, locked it with my own key. My own manual key. I use a manual old-fashioned key for my wife's car. I use it to get around. I just don't drive it. Rarely sit in the driver's seat. The only time I sit in the driver's seat is if I'm cleaning the car. But very rarely, I can tell you. You don't want to go out cleaning a car that you don't drive. That's ridiculous. If you're cleaning a car that you don't drive, there's a 99.9999% chance that it's not your car. You're cleaning someone else's car. Now, if you happen to be me, the odds change. So I just make sure that it's not someone else's car other than my wife's. And then that's fine. And it's appropriate to clean it out. You clean it out and then you lock it. Then you come out later to find the battery is drained. Every inch, a millimetre of electricity from the battery has been used up on these lights or this radio or something. Whatever the battery gets used on when the car is not on. What does the battery get used on when the car is not on? And it wasn't AC, what you Americans call AC. No, it wasn't AC. I'm not obsessed with conditioning the air in our car when we're not even travelling. No, I didn't have the AC on. I don't think so anyway. I had the keys in. I don't think I had the AC on. I think I had the ceiling light on. There's a ceiling light in the car that you only use when you're not travelling, because you cause confusion. It's a bit like cabin lights in an aeroplane that they turn off during approach and liftoff because they confuse other pilots or something. Another pilot will see a plane with the ceiling lights on and think, oh Christ, what's that? Is that a bus? I think we're about to collide with a bus. What's that bus doing there? It's a very odd-looking bus. It's got a tail on it. Do buses have tails on them? Maybe they do. Because you have Greyhound buses. Greyhounds have tails, don't they? Or do they cut them off? Are greyhounds one of the type of dogs that they cut the tails off from? I'm not sure. But there are people who cut tails off dogs for some reason. I don't know anything about it. I presume it's cruel. Make the dog more aerodynamic or something? I don't know. I would imagine the tail would make it more aerodynamic. But maybe then the dog has to be able to use the tail in an aerodynamic manner. It's very complicated. Planes have tails on them, and if you lose your tail is the rudder of the plane. If you lose that, then you lose control of the plane completely. If a dog loses its tail, apparently, it's almost fine. It's probably very stressed. It's probably supposed to have the tail for some sort of reason. But it's not for flying. So it doesn't mean the dog becomes any less able to fly than it would otherwise. In fact, in today's world, removing a dog's tail, which I don't recommend or endorse, but removing a dog's tail may reduce the amount of baggage fees you have to pay if you're bringing a dog on a long-haul flight. But don't do it. Don't be a cheapskate. Pay for your dog's tail to fly with you, and not separately from the dog. Leave the tail on the dog. Your dog has a tail. It grew the tail naturally. You don't cut off bits that grew on you naturally, unless they're cancerous or something, I suppose. If a cancer grows on you naturally, you have that removed if at all possible, or slowly kill it. But apart from that, no. Absolutely not. If we go through customs nowadays, you see a sign saying you have to declare if you're bringing any plants into the country. You have to declare if you're bringing any meat into the country. I presume it says that as well. I don't read all the small print. I just read it saying, don't bring any crop in here. So I don't bring any crop in here, nor would I want to. So I presume it says don't bring any dead dogs in here. You can bring them live, but don't think you're going to get it easier by putting your dog into stasis or something. Like in sci-fi films, they put you into stasis for years on a long interstellar space voyage to another solar system. Don't imagine you can do that with your dog to cut on fees or whatever you need to do. No. Firstly, you'll still have to pay baggage fees for that because you're bringing the dog on. Secondly, if your dog is in a coma or it's in stasis, I don't think they count that as meat, do they? Or they do count it as meat. Either way, you're going to have to do some explaining at the customs and excise. Because you're the first person they've come across who's done that. Carry your dog on a plane either in stasis or in a medically induced coma. They're going to spend 2 hours trying to figure out what the rules are, and then you'll miss your flight. So don't do that. Maybe it'll be after you land at the end of your flight, because that's when you go through customs, perhaps. I don't know. Over here, if you're going from here to America, you go through US customs in an Irish airport just before you go to the gate. So don't try to be smart-arsed about it and think, oh, well, just bring it through here, and then when we get to the destination, we'll explain it there, and it'll be too late to send us back. No. Don't put your dog into stasis, though, or into a coma, unless your vet has recommended it for some reason. Or unless your dog is working for NASA and has volunteered to work for NASA and isn't just going there because you volunteered your dog. Don't volunteer your dog for things. Well, except maybe as a guide dog, because I might eat one of them one day. But apart from that, no, don't volunteer your dog for interstellar voyages, unless you're going with it. And you're going to go regardless of whether the dog goes, and you don't want the dog to have to go through the stress of having to get used to a new owner. That's the only time when that will be acceptable, I assume. Again, I haven't had a lot of experience of dog ownership. I had a dog for a year or two, many years ago. It's been cats all the way since. If you're listening to this in a stasis chamber, on a spaceship, on your way to God knows where, I know what you're thinking there, by the way. If you're listening to this in stasis, you won't be listening, you'll be in stasis. No, I didn't say you were in stasis. I said you're in a stasis chamber. Either you've just woken up from your time in stasis, or you haven't gone into stasis yet, or you failed to go into stasis, or you've disobeyed your NASA overlords and not taking the stasis pill, so you're staying awake for the whole voyage because you want to see every inch of the trip. You want to watch every inch of the trip. You don't care what happens if you go mad sitting in this spaceship for 100 years. You think, no, I want to experience every minute of it. I'm not going into stasis. Well, if you don't mind me saying so, that's a little silly. I'm reading a book at the moment. I'm reading an audio book called The Hail Mary Project. It's about this fella. He finds himself on a ship. He's forgotten why he went on the ship because he's woken up from stasis or a coma or something. He's been on the ship for years, traveling to another sun to try and save the universe or something, and he slowly remembers why he's there and how he came to be on the ship. Everyone else on the ship is dead, and he wakes up from his medically induced coma, and he goes, "Oh Christ, what's this?" And there's a robot arm. Now the movie is just coming out, so you're probably thinking, I'm about to see that movie, don't spoil it for me. I'm not spoiling the movie, I haven't seen the movie either. I just read the book, I'm on my second reading of the book. The book has been out for years and years and years. The same fella who wrote The Martian. The only difference is the movie has only just come out. Well, I'm not going to spoil the movie for you. I can't spoil the movie because I literally haven't seen it. I don't know what happens in it. I have no idea. I presume it's based on the book. Pretty much has to be. But I've only read the book. In fact, arguably, as some would put it, I haven't read the book at all. I've got the audio book. I haven't taken out a big pile of paper and lovingly thumbed through every page and dog-eared every page and spilt piss on it and taking it with me on trains and put on my reading glasses every night to peer into this thing. No, I read audiobooks. I'm an audiobook consumer. I listen to audiobooks for part of the day. I listen to podcasts for much of the day. And then I run out of podcasts and audiobooks, then I just crawl into a hole. Oh, it's like crawling into a sewage pipe, except it's cleaner because it's a hole I dug in my back garden. I dug a hole in my back garden. It's full of cans of mushy peas from Lidl. Now, if you're going to do that, if you're going to have an air raid trench or whatever you call it, what do you call it? A survival tank. If you're going to put canned mushy peas in there, if they're the cheap supermarket own brand ones, make damn sure you bring a load of seasoning. If there's some sort of long life butter you can add to it, even better. Because otherwise, it'll open up the first can, it'll be 3 days into the nuclear fallout emergency. You're saying, right, I'm glad I packed all these cans in here. I'm going to survive this and stay underground for at least a year. I have plenty of cans of mushy peas. In fact, I'm going to try the first one now and take out one of your cans. Firstly, you find they don't even put a ring pull on them anymore, so make damn sure to Christ as hell that you have a tin opener. You open up this can and then you take out, at the very least, an all-purpose seasoning, such as, for example, aromat. Sprinkle about a ton of that straight into the can on top of the mushy peas. Put some pepper in as well. Possibly some salt, stir that in, if possible a pinch of butter, stir that in as well, and then heat it up in the microwave. Oh wait, if you've been through a nuclear fallout emergency, you probably have a phobia of microwaves by now. So even if you put one in your underground survival tank, you're not going to want to use that, are you? No, I bet you the first thing you'll do when you climb in there is say, oh Christ, I never want to see anything ever again that has anything to do with radiation. Let's get rid of this microwave. So hopefully you've got some sort of oven or something to provide heat. Would you have a heater in an underground thing, or is it just hot down there? Presume if you dig deep enough, you're protected from the elements, so it's not going to get particularly cold, is it? Does the ground freeze that far down? Well, it depends how far down you are, I don't know. If you bury yourself under the ground in one of these shelters, do you decompose, regardless of whether you're alive or dead? Because that would be a problem. You have to concentrate on staying composed all the time. Make sure you don't spend too long asleep. I don't know how that probably doesn't work like that, does it? I don't know. I've never built a fallout shelter. I'm not a survivalist. I do keep a stock of little mushy peas in the corner press here. I have a whole corner of a shelf that's just for mushy peas. I keep my cans of peas in one particular corner of a shelf because I can't read them. So if I go to that particular corner of that shelf, that's where the mushy peas are. The shelf under that corner of that press, the bottom level of that press is, if I remember rightly, tinned carrots. And then the other side of that press, on the same level as the mushy peas, that's where I keep the baked beans, not the spaghetti hoops. That can get complicated. So anyway, you're in your fallout shelter. You've gotten rid of your microwave, or perhaps you've had the foresight to look into microwaves while you were planning your trench. You figured out, no, this is perfectly safe. I've read the instructions for this microwave. It says it's perfectly safe to have it underground. I suppose that's possible. They have fridges that are safe to have in an outhouse now. You can't do that with just any old fridge. No. You put a fridge in an outhouse, the outside of it overheats while it's trying to get cold on the inside. You can form a planet that way. Where am I going with this shit? Take out your mushy peas, put all your mixed seasoning in, lots of pepper, pinch of butter, whatever you can get. If you have a freezer, you can certainly keep butter for at least a year. Spreadable butter. It becomes less spreadable when you freeze it, but then you defreeze it and then put a tiny pinch of it into the can of mushy peas. And I recommend whatever quantity of butter you put in, remove that quantity of juices from the mushy peas can. So it won't be any more or less watery than it was. It'll taste better. Stir it with a spoon. The lids they have on cans, you can slice your hand off with one of them. You could slice a dog's tail off if you felt you had to. But if you're doing that, you should also use it to give yourself a frontal lobotomy. There was this doctor once, he started doing them, and he just do it with an ice pick or something. He used an ice pick to do brain surgery on patients. Whatever country he was in, he went around the country teaching other doctors how to do this. They did it for a year or two. And then they realised they were destroying people's minds completely with this thing. Turns out if you stick something into the middle of someone's face and disconnect part of their brain using an ice pick, it has side effects that are undesirable. So he stopped doing that at some point. It's ended anyway. They came up with some better way to do brain surgery. They started doing it in hospitals. You go into some hospital and you say, hello, I'd like some brain surgery, please. And they say, certainly, do you have an appointment with the surgeon? And you say yes, because you do. An appointment with a surgeon. They don't bring you into surgery. He brings you into an office. The surgeons spend whole days, a couple of days a week, just seeing people in an office. You wait patiently in the waiting room and then you're called in. He says, come in here. He doesn't say, come in here to this operating theatre. He just says, come in here, and it's just an office, and you sit at a desk and he talks to you, not even necessarily about surgery. Your doctor wants to consult with this surgeon. Instead of the doctor contacting the surgeon about you, he sends you to talk to the surgeon, but he expects the surgeon to talk directly to you. The doctor's too important to talk directly to the surgeon, but the surgeon's not too important to talk directly to you. That's a bit weird. The consultant surgeon fella doesn't send a patient out to talk to you. No, he comes out himself. Because he has a bit of manners, I suppose. They're well-bred, these people. You know they're well-bred. You see them on TV doing surgery. They say, scalpel, please. Or sometimes they'll just say scalpel, but they're saying it in a civilized manner. They're saying it's scalpel. They're not going, give us the fucking scalpel. They are not. At the very least, they'll go, scalpel, in a reasonable voice, unless something's going very wrong and the person who's handing them the scalpel is making a hames of everything. And they go, give us a fucking scalpel and then give us your resignation. Don't give it to me in here though. Come and see me in my office on my office day. I don't take resignation letters in here because this is the surgery. It's like two separate lives these surgeons have. They spend half their week in the surgery dealing with blood and guts and gore. And then they spend the other half in some office going, please type a letter for me, secretary, and bring that fella in so I can talk to him about vaguely medical matters, but not lay a single finger on any flesh or blood or operating equipment. There's probably not even a bed in the surgeon's office. It's like an accountant's office. They put bookshelves in the surgeon's office. It's usually because the surgeon is making appearances on some news program on the television when they have something in the news about surgery. So they'll put him up on Skype so he has a bookcase behind him so he looks impressive on the television. And the viewers go, oh, he's got books behind him. That probably means he wants us to be impressed. Well, we're not. Firstly, we can't see what the books are. We've no way of knowing whether he's read them or not. The excuse they give anyway is that these are reference books. You don't read them from cover to cover. You look them up whenever you need to. Well, I used to have encyclopedias. I had 1960s Collier's encyclopedias, American encyclopedias, and I can tell you, I read a lot of those encyclopedias, not necessarily from cover to cover, because it's a lot to get through for a child, but I read many articles in those encyclopedias and the accompanying yearbooks. There was a Collier's Encyclopedia yearbooks. We got them every year from the 1960s to the mid-1980s. One of them had a very long article about Sesame Street. I read that 2 or 3 times. It was very interesting. It also had those things you have in the middle of encyclopedias where they have transparency plastic pages and you put the human body on them. You flip over each page and you get a different layer of the human body. You have those even in a normal encyclopedia, so Christ only knows what they have in the medical encyclopedia. Although a doctor shouldn't need a medical encyclopedia. He's supposed to just know everything. You shouldn't need an encyclopedia for that. No. Maybe a legal reference book or something, or rule books and things. Maybe a phone book. Well, no, he shouldn't need medical books. He should know all the stuff that's in that book. If he's capable of opening up a man and doing stuff with his insides, he should be able to memorize what's in a book. Because if you can't memorize what's inside a book, then how are you going to memorize what's inside a person? You can't be leaning over the person, holding a book and reading it while you're operating on them. No, it's not sterile for one thing. People aren't sterile. When you open someone up, the inside of them isn't sterile. They've been eating stuff and breathing stuff. They've been breathing in the fumes from their cat's litter tray that they pass every time they go into the hall. They've been eating God knows what. They've come on a bus, possibly. Dust and fumes and muck gets into their pores. Do they make you have a shower when you're going for surgery? That's something I've never heard of. I've known people who've gone to hospital and had surgery. I don't think I've ever had any of them mention to them, hello, you're going to go for surgery at 9 o'clock tomorrow, so we'll bring you down to the showers at 8 o'clock. I don't think I've ever heard that happen. Maybe you have, I don't know. Maybe they just don't tell me. If they're going to do that, they need to at least tell you as well. You're going to go to the showers at 8 o'clock, so you might want to take a dump at 7:30. Because there's no point doing that after the shower. You don't get the full benefit. There's nothing technically wrong with it. You're clean and stuff, I suppose. But no, you get the full benefit. You do the shower last. And if you're going to shave as well, you want to do that before the shower. Same goes for brushing your teeth, especially if you're me. When I brush my teeth, I get toothpaste everywhere, all over my face. The best way to wash that off is by having a shower. And you want to be the first one into that shower as well if you're going for surgery. Otherwise, you're not going to be sterile. So hopefully they have that sorted out. I think you have people called orderlies in hospitals. Are they the people who bring you to the shower? I presume they make sure you get a shower that hasn't been used that day, or has just been fumigated, whatever has to be done to it. I say, this fella's having his open leg surgery. Make damn sure to Christ as hell that he gets a fresh, sterile shower that hasn't been used yet. Check the drains are being pumped clean of anything. Check there's a clean bar of soap, not one that's just being half used and then cleaned. No, you want a proper bar of soap that's still in its packaging. There must be some better way to do bars of soap. In my childhood, we all had bars of soap everywhere. Every room had a bar of soap. Well, every room that was used for washing had a bar of soap in it, including the toilet. There was a bar of soap. You go into public toilets, they had these little blue things that looked like bars of soap, and it'd be in the urinal. So hopefully that's a separate system that's kept isolated from the soap system, hopefully. We had these bars of soap. Now, Irish Spring doesn't exist. I know you Americans all think there's a thing called Irish Spring because you have it in your shops. You say, oh, we got this Irish Spring soap. That doesn't exist. There's no such thing as Irish Spring here. There might be Irish Spring Water, but that's not even the brand. You get spring water and you go for the cheap supermarket own brand. It's usually labelled something like Irish Spring Water. But that's not a brand. So don't fool yourself. You're not getting Irish Spring in those places.
Into your head.
Apparently, I said if you're listening to this in your underground bunker after an apocalypse, if that's the situation you're in, you would probably just take whatever drugs you have Take whatever drugs you have, well, in safe quantities. Don't harm yourself doing drugs, but just to make your life bearable. If the world has ended, you're in a bunker under your vegetable patch in your back garden. Your back garden is probably gone then. You don't have to worry about the roots of your cabbages sending down drips of contaminated water, because your cabbages have been disintegrated into nothing. They've just been turned into vapor. In fact, the whole soil above you is probably vaporized. So your bunker is just floating in space. The whole planet has been vaporized. If you've built your nuclear fallout bunker properly, I presume it's still in existence, but it's floating in space because the whole planet has been blown to smithereens. So your bunker is just floating in space. You might as well be one of these astronauts on their way to some distant galaxy. Maybe that's the secret. Maybe these survivalists who like to build these bunkers and spend their weekends putting cans in a bunker under their back garden, maybe they're secretly hoping that when the world gets blown to smithereens and vaporized, they'll just be flung into orbit and they'll end up being the first humans ever to travel to another solar system. Maybe that's the idea. I suppose it's worth a try. If you build your underground bunker strong enough, everything vaporizes after the nuclear war, whole planet has gone, and you're just in space, then you don't even need rockets or anything to launch it into space. You're just in space. And of course, the planet's rock and soil and people and inhabitants and buildings and atmosphere, that will absorb the impact of the nuclear thing, and your bunker will survive. That's probably what you're thinking. I hope you put a window on it. When the soil is gone and there's just your bunker left floating in space, you're going to want to have a look out the window, surely. And that stairs is going to look a bit silly. The stairs that you have going up to the door that goes into the exit into your back lawn, that's going to look a bit silly. Going up a stairs to get to the door of your spaceship in zero gravity conditions in space. It's not a submarine. The only thing that should have that on it is a submarine. You go up the stairs to exit. No. Wait a minute though. If the Earth survives and the planet is usable again, then you're going to want to go back up that stairs to get out, I suppose. Maybe you're not that confident that your underground bunker will survive. So you have a stairs just in case. Just as a backup. You're not completely sure of yourself, even though you have hundreds of cans of mushy peas stored away. You have condensed milk powder. You have bottled water. You have a septic tank. Have you got something to keep the sun's rays off your thing? So maybe you don't want a window because they go get sunburnt through the window. I don't know. I don't know anything about space. Do you know anything about space? I'm not sure you do if you're building a bunker, because you can't be an expert in everything. If you happen to be an expert in surviving in a bunker under your back garden, it's unlikely that you're also an expert in space travel. Those are two different hobbies. If you're a space travel hobbyist, you're a very different thing from an underground bunker survivalist hobbyist. Those are different things. Maybe you do one of them on a Saturday, one of them on a Sunday, I suppose. I suppose there's that. Some people go and play football on a Saturday and then they go singing church choir on the Sunday. They have two separate hobbies. You probably don't consider the church choir to be a hobby, do you? You probably don't. You probably think, that's part of my spiritual health, well-being. That's not a hobby. Any more than polishing my shoes as a hobby. It's just maintenance. I suppose there's that. You could say the same about your football, though. You're maintaining your health and your fitness and possibly your mental health and your self-worth. I don't know. You could say the same about investing in the stock market. That's maintenance as well. You're maintaining your financial self-worth. So maybe you do say that. I don't know. It seems unlikely, though, that you'd be doing your survivalist hobby on a Saturday and your amateur space travel thing on a Sunday, maybe launching rockets from your back garden. I don't know. Maybe those are two hobbies that merged at some point. Two hobbyists met up somewhere and said, wait a minute, you're planning an underground space bunker thing? Because I've got rockets and I'm into space. Have you ever wondered if your underground bunker thing survives a nuclear catastrophe and the core of the Earth melts away and gets vaporized and you somehow survive? Maybe you become a space traveler. You probably haven't thought about that because you don't know about space. And they'll say, oh, well, you're going to know about space when that happens, I can tell you. Because you'll be literally floating in space. And if that works, there won't be much use for us rocket hobbyists. So can we come into your bunker, please? And you'll say, no, you can't. And then they'll say, well, what have I told you? We had a way to propel you into whatever direction you want to go after you found yourself floating in space. Because I know you're probably going to end up somewhere floating in space. But if you want propulsion and steerage, you're going to need rockets. And we're into rockets and space travel. We can help you with that in return for a few cans of mushy peas and some seasoning. And then, of course, you'll say to that, you'll say, okay, let's merge our clubs. It'll be like merging two football clubs. Be like when Bray Wanderers, local club in this county, I think they merged with a team in Cabinteely in South County Dublin, a few miles away. A bit like that. Your amateur space rocket club will merge with your underground bunker survivalist post-nuclear apocalypse back garden cans of mushy peas hobbyists. They'll merge the two clubs and then they'll go from strength to strength. And it'll be synergies. Not symmetries. What's that called? Not symmetries. There'll be, symbiosis. No, that's not the word. What's that word for symmetries? No. They'll be stronger together. They'll both be able to do their hobby on both Saturday and Sunday. They'll get more done. The rest is just logistics. I'm sure you can deal with logistics. It's pretty much your pastime. Your pastime is keeping this underground store going, making sure you use up all your mushy peas just before they go out of date, and then getting more so you still have them in stock. You're saving up all these cans of mushy peas. Those things, they last a long time, but eventually they're going to need to be used up or thrown away. So presume you have a system. So even though there hasn't been a nuclear apocalypse and you're not going into the bunker, you still have to use up those stores and replace them with new mushy peas. You're going to be eating mushy peas nearly every night, if that's the case. When we had vegetable gardens as kids, we used to have vegetables all the time. Even though there was no nuclear emergency, it was just my father was into gardening and we had vegetables. You're going to have that, but with tinned mushy peas. You get sick of those a lot more quickly than you get sick of fresh homegrown vegetables, even though there's less work involved. Homegrown peas, you have to shell them, you have to remove them from the shells. You're taking the peas out of the pod. You slice the pod open with your fingernail. You run your fingernail along the thing. It can get quite sore if you're doing it repetitively, which you will be. You're going to shell enough peas for a family dinner. You're going to be ages slicing away at these pods. You get 3 or 4 little peas out of each pod. Or maybe it's 6 or 7, I forget. It's a long time since I did it. In fact, I don't think I've shelled a single pea in the current century. Now that I think about it, the last time I shelled peas, I think would have been at the very latest 1989. So that's when my father died. He was the one who was growing the peas. So no, I haven't shelled any peas in the current century. All my pea shelling has been from a separate century, back in the 20th century. The same century when they had 2 world wars. Didn't have a nuclear fallout shelter to worry about, of course. I wouldn't be worried about it. I'd probably be less worried if I had a nuclear fallout shelter if I was living in that century. Which I was. I lived in that century up until my mid-20s, in fact. So that's quite something. You look at history books of World War I and II, you think, I wonder what it was like to live back then in the 20th century. Just ask me. I lived back then in the 20th century. I lived in the 20th century. I was there when Bohemian Rhapsody was in the charts. I was alive. I wasn't there for the Hitler stuff. That was earlier on in the century. I was there for the arrival of cable television channels that endlessly repeat programs about Hitler. So there's that. I also lived during the same millennium during which America was discovered. I was alive during the same millennium during which people recovered from their hangovers from the last New Year's Eve of the first millennium. Of course, it wasn't the first millennium. It was just the first millennium that was counted. And they counted the previous ones retrospectively. They called them BC. So there was hundreds of BC millenniums, which came magically into existence in the past. I was around for the one that ran from around 1000 AD to the year 2000. Let's not get into the thing about whether the millennium starts in 2000 or 2001. If you're worrying about what date or what year the century starts in, you're a nerd. You probably listen to podcasts as well, do you? That's how much of a nerd you are. You sit in your nuclear bunker listening to podcasts that you had the misfortune to download just before you had the misfortune to be involved in nuclear apocalypse that may well wipe out your planet. And that's my planet as well, so I should probably be worried about that too. Well, this is a load of bollocks, isn't it? This is a load of bollocks. Christ almighty. It's like turning my podcast into some computer game where you're all playing war. I hate computer games, so I hate computer games especially where it's about war. You're sick and disgusting. You're scum if you're doing that. If you're into war games where you go shooting people, you're a sick scumbag. I don't mean that as a judgment. No, you were born sick or something made you sick. There's nothing wrong with being sick. It's not your fault. You didn't make yourself sick on purpose, but you are sick. You're fantasizing about killing people. You're fantasizing about shooting people in the head or putting a sword into their chest or chopping their limbs off or slicing their head up into little strips like you would on a cartoon or dropping an Acme block on them, an Acme paperweight. Now, surely a paperweight wouldn't be heavy enough to kill someone. That's probably why they always survive in the cartoons. You get a giant Acme paperweight dropped on you in the Roadrunner cartoon. It stops you in your tracks, but you're not dead. No, you survived that. You just look a little dazed for a few minutes, and then they just move on to the next scene. You still don't catch the Roadrunner. Getting an Acme paperweight dropped on your head from a great height probably has about the same effect long term as getting long COVID. It slows you down, so you're never going to catch the Roadrunner, even though you're in relatively good health. You're alive. You've recovered from your direct injuries from that paperweight, from your head injuries. I know, it's like having long COVID. It's going to be staying with you for a long time. It's going to be a problem. And no, you don't want that. You don't want long COVID, especially if you're a coyote in a cartoon living in the, whatever that is. Is that a desert? I don't know. What is that place they're in the Roadrunner cartoons? I think it's a desert. No, it's a mountain range, isn't it? It's not that mountain range in Colorado, is it? Where Mork and Mindy was set. I think that was set in Colorado. I think there's a listener to this who moved to Colorado a few years ago. He'd probably know. Have you got Roadrunners there? You probably have. Maybe you consider yourself a Roadrunner. I don't know. Are you a Roadrunner? You drive around the mountains at great speed, laughing at wild dogs. I think a coyote is a wild dog, is it? Maybe it isn't. He can't be that wild. He's able to get shipments from the Acme company. I don't know. I suppose in a way it's just a children's cartoon. It's just for children. It's just a violent cartoon for children about a dog being abused for his whole life, being abused by his own prey. It should be perfectly reasonable in a children's cartoon for the prey to eventually get caught. This is normal nature. The prey gets caught eventually. Just as my cats occasionally catch a mouse or a bird, or you catch a fly and eat it straight away for a few extra vitamins. I can understand why they don't want to kill off one of the main characters. But they should show another Roadrunner sometimes. During the show, Wile Coyote can be watching this from a cliff, watching this other coyote catching this other Roadrunner. And he's thinking, what's that fella's secret? He looks like he's enjoying himself. Sprinkling salt on the Roadrunner. Make damn sure you cook that properly. Is a Roadrunner poultry? You have to cook poultry properly, whatever you do. And after you've handled raw poultry, make damn sure to Christ as hell that you wash your hands. You don't wash raw poultry. For some reason I don't understand, but apparently you're not supposed to wash raw poultry. That's bad. It does something risky to it. But you wash your hands thoroughly after you touch raw poultry. Before you touch anything else, you wipe down any surfaces that the juices might have gotten onto. If you've drunk any raw poultry juices while you were preparing the chicken, make damn sure you vomit those up. Don't let them go all the way through. If they've already gone all the way through, there's not much you can do about that. But if you've digested accidentally some raw poultry juices, they've splashed up into your mouth while you were preparing the chicken or whatever it was, make damn sure you vomit that up. It's nothing wrong with vomiting. Vomiting can save your life. I don't mean get an eating disorder. No, don't turn it into an eating disorder. I'm just saying if you swallow some raw chicken juices, purge them. That's what vomiting is for. Don't worry, you'll be able to eat that again later when it's cooked safely. I presume the producers of the Roadrunner show had in mind that if they ever do show a Roadrunner getting caught by a coyote, they would show him preparing it properly. Or did they have that advice in those days? Was this perhaps before the days when the Department of Agriculture would advise people not to handle raw poultry and to make sure it's thoroughly cooked? Maybe it was. When is the Roadrunner set? It was made in the 1920s or 30s or 40s. But so was Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny, where they're making new ones of them. Here in the early 21st century, they made new ones where they're in a modern apartment like Seinfeld or something. So you never know with these things. They fuck about with time and space and location. You never know anymore. You never know anymore with these cartoons. You far better just get your kids to watch a soap opera. Even though soap operas are shit, at least they're somewhat reflective of the real world. That's what you do.
Are you going into your head?
Anyway, this Doug, he's walking along the footpath, minding his own business. Oh wait, did I say he was No, I said, didn't I say he was walking along in the middle of the road where the two continuous white lines are? Oh, that's right. So this Doug, he's walking along the middle of the road where there's two continuous white lines. Now, you're probably thinking that's very dangerous. Well, it could be more dangerous. The two continuous white lines mean neither vehicles from that direction or the opposite direction are allowed to cross those lines. So that middle of the road is the one place where vehicles just aren't allowed to go. And not allowed. Well, that's not entirely true. You're not allowed to overtake. So you can't go over to the other side of the road into oncoming traffic. But presumably those lines are there because the road is bendy or narrow. So there's a good chance that cars will stray onto the middle of the road just because of lack of space. That's why the double white lines are there. So there's that. The fact that there's no overtaking doesn't mean it's a completely neutral zone. No. It's somewhat safe in a way. The dog can be sure that if he's walking into oncoming traffic, he can be sure that the traffic coming behind him isn't going to try to overtake and cross over the road. So there's that. He probably has no idea about any of that, though. He's just some stupid dog. Doesn't know the rules of the road. He's not even a trained guide dog or anything. He's just a dog. He's just a dog walking along the middle of the road and probably making a nuisance of himself. Like the littlest hobo. Don't worry, I'm not going to start going into a big long thing about the littlest hobo again. I've talked about the littlest hobo before. One of those helpful animal children's shows that were on in the 80s and 90s. You had Lassie, you had the littlest hobo, you had Flipper, you had Skippy the bush kangaroo, you had your man who was in Star Trek Enterprise. Now, he wasn't a helpful animal, he was a helpful person. Quantum Leap, I would say, falls into the same category as those helpful animal shows. You had Lassie, you had the littlest hobo. The littlest hobo used to go from town to town, finding people to help. Lassie, the dog, I think, did he live with his owners at home and he was just found himself helping out with things? I'm not sure. Now, Flipper, I'm not sure about Flipper. Was he a helpful animal or was he just an animal who people had and he was just there? Now that I think about it, I always refer to all of these shows as helpful animal shows. I'm not sure that Flipper was helping anyone, was he? He wasn't going around saving lives, or maybe he was. Maybe he was. And Skippy the bush kangaroo. Kangaroos are terrifying. Was the kangaroo saving people? I'm not sure. Or was he helping some kids save people, or was he just there for entertainment? I'm not sure now that I think about it. But no, you had Quantum Leap. That was a helpful animal show. Humans are a species of animal, so Quantum Leap qualifies as a helpful animal show in my book. Which means also, what's that one with Michael Landon, who used to be in Little House on the Prairie? There was one with him, it was called something like Highway to Heaven. He was an angel who went around helping people. Now, I'm not sure if he travelled around from town to town. Maybe that could qualify as a helpful animal. Well, helpful spirit animal, I suppose. I don't know. And then, of course, he died in real life. But no one had the forethought to continue the show with him dead in it. He said, no, you can be in this hit show where you play an angel for several years, but then when you die in real life, we're just going to end the show. We're not going to continue it where you could actually be a real angel playing a real... This is what people cry out for, realistic shows. People with disabilities often campaign for better portrayal of their disabilities in shows. They want more disabled actors playing people with similar disabilities. Why not do the same with dead people? If you're going to have an angel, have it played by a real dead person. Now, maybe they had a seance. They got in touch with your man who plays the angel and found out he's not actually an angel. He's dead, but he's not an angel. I suppose the vast majority of dead people aren't angels. It's an elite thing. In fact, are angels not the ones who were never incarnated on Earth at all? Maybe there's that. Or they've incarnated on a different planet. Maybe I've got that whole arse ways now that I think about it. So yes, I would count Quantum Leap and Highway to Heaven would be helpful animal shows. I suppose you could count a lot of those detective shows as helpful animal shows as well. But no, you can't. I suppose they're cleaning up after unhelpful animals who've murdered people. No, it's not really the same thing, I suppose. Like, you wouldn't want your kids watching most of those. You wouldn't want your kid watching your man on Criminal Minds, Miami, or wherever the one is. He has a way of saying stuff that involves taking his sunglasses off just when he gets to the last word that makes it sound profound or something. That's not something you'd want your children watching, especially with all those murders in it as well. He goes around chasing criminals. It's crime scene investigation. They literally show the scene of the crime. They show where the dead person was. They show blood and guts and gore and weapons. No, don't show your child that. I say whoever's making that program and targeting at children as being an unhelpful animal. In fairness, they're not doing that. Maybe they have a kid spin-off now, do they? I don't know. Suffice to say, Quantum Leap I hereby declare is a helpful animal show along the lines of The Littlest Hobo and Lassie and all the rest of them. So the dog is walking along the middle of the road. There's the double white lines which protect them somewhat from cars overtaking, but they don't protect them from it being a dangerous road. It's clearly a very dangerous road. If it has two continuous lines in the middle, that usually denotes a very dangerous road. So there's that. Of course, again, the dog doesn't know or care about any of this. All the dog knows is that he's wandering along a road. He doesn't even know that he's on a road. He just knows it's a route to somewhere. He's on, what's that song? We're on a road to nowhere. Get back inside. We're on a road. Is that one of those Australian pop groups? I think it might be. Or is it the people who does You Can Dance If You Want To? You can leave your cares behind, and something, and you can dance if you want to. That thing, the safety dance. I think that was Australians. He was kicked out of a nightclub for bad dancing, supposedly, and he wrote this song and did all the supposedly bad dancing in it. And as soon as anyone does any dancing who's male and who doesn't look like a fucking model, first thing everyone does is go, oh, you're a terrible dancer. That means you're a terrible person. It's laughable that you should try to become an entertainer or musical in any way. It's a perfectly decent song. In fact, that song is featured in a lot of very violent computer games. Grand Theft Auto, one of the radio stations on one of the Grand Theft Auto games has that song on it, because it's set in the 80s, I think, or something. So there's that on it. I don't know why that would back up my point about anything now that I think about it. No. Grand Theft Auto Vice City, I think the safety dance is on one of the radio stations that you can play in the game. I think so. What's that got to do with anything? It's got nothing to do with anything. No. Is that Men at Work? Maybe it is. And then there's that other one. I'm not sure if it's Australian, but they go, we come from the land down under. I'm not even going to do that on my harmonica. It doesn't deserve to be. It's cordy and stupid. They go, I come from the land down under, where people something and blunder. Now, is that by Australians or is it about Australians? Because if it's about Australians, well, it's written by people in the Northern Hemisphere, then it's incredibly racist and ignorant. Because it's very critical of Australians. It says, we come from a land down under where men something and something blunder. I think they plunder and blunder or something along those lines. Doesn't sound very complimentary at all to Australians. Unless it's about New Zealanders. Or maybe in the Southern Hemisphere, you refer to Northern Hemispherians as being from down under. I suppose there's that. It's not like you're upside down there. I would think you probably don't, though. I would think you probably don't refer to Northern Hemisphere people as down unders when you're from the Southern Hemisphere, because that would just cause confusion. You wouldn't do that. It's confusing enough. If you're in Australia, you probably think we're in the normal, upright part of the world. Everyone else is from the opposite land. They have their Christmas in the middle of winter, sickos. So no, I don't like that Land Down Under song. It's a bit much. And then there's We're on the Road to Nowhere. For some reason, I associate that with Australians, but maybe it's not. Do you have roads going to nowhere in Australia? You probably do. Everyone's house is on the coast. Your back garden is facing away from the coast, and everything beyond your back wall is the outback. It's like a big wasteland behind everyone's houses. I've lived in places where you had a big wasteland behind the houses. They used to have bonfires there at Halloween. Now, you don't have bonfires there at Halloween. You just have a big desert, basically a big empty backyard, which I suppose is reasonable. Suppose that's reasonable. That's Australia for you. I've never been to Australia. You probably have. If you're listening to this in Australia, you're probably thinking, I've never been to wherever you are. Well, how do you know? You don't know where I am. I purport to be coming from Ireland. I don't usually say where I am. I usually say this country, and you probably just assume I'm in Ireland because of my accent and my name. I don't even say my name on this program. I think I've said my name on this program approximately once in the 20 years that this podcast has been running. So if you know my name is because you're able to read, you look at my name down in the thing. I have my name in the thing. You look at your phone, you see my name under it. But I don't speak my name. Why would I speak my name? I'm not going to call myself. I'm going to say, hello, Neal. See, that's probably the second or the third time at most I've ever said my first name on this show. I'm not sure I've ever even said my surname. Why would I? It comes across as hieroglyphics to you foreigners. It has an apostrophe in it. It causes a lot of confusion. As does my first name, because no one knows how to spell it. So there's no reason to be saying my name. It's not that I want to be anonymous or anything. My name causes confusion. I don't even put it as the email address. The email address is studio@IntoYourHead.ie. I don't put Neal in it because you don't know how to spell it. And I object to having to make 8 different email addresses, each with different possible misspellings and spellings of the name Neal. That's not reasonable. So we don't do that. So, oh yes, incidentally, if you have any queries or comments on the show ever, you can email studio@IntoYourHead.ie or visit that website for details. It's strictly wound in a contact me segment somehow. That's fantastic. So that's oh yes, the dog. So the dog is still walking along the centre of the road. He's on the road to nowhere. Get back inside. I don't know the words of that song. We're on the road to nowhere. Get back inside. I've no idea whether that's an Australian group. It sounds a bit to me like the Australian pop groups that I know of. So I don't know. You Australians probably get sick to death of being associated with these 2 or 3 pop groups from the 80s and Kylie Minogue and Nick Cave. And I used to think until recently that the Doors were Australian. Apparently they're not Australian. At least I think they're not. I'm not sure now, but I came across a thing that said they weren't Australian, they were American. I'm not very interested in that band or their music, so I don't really follow through on finding out. I know the Australian Pink Floyd is probably Australian, but the original Pink Floyd isn't. There's an Australian Pink Floyd. I understand it's called the Australian Pink Floyd. I think it's a tribute band. They're from Australia. And then what else? It's insulting to you Australians for me to even come on here and start stating what things I know about Australian culture, because they're the 2 or 3 that I know of. I might as well just go on about Paul Hogan and say, oh, that's you. You made Paul Hogan. You're very proud. No, I don't want to insult you. I understood they've made a new movie involving Crocodile Dundee now that's a satirical thing about Crocodile Dundee's character, and there's a satire that mocks the whole thing. You probably get sick to death of foreigners bringing up Australia and saying, oh, men down under, men at work, Collie Minogue, Nick Cave, and what's his name? Dane Medna Everidge, and what's his name? You certainly don't want to hear about Rolf Harris, I'm sure. I would argue he was made famous by the British more than the Australians, at least during the later part of his career. For you people who aren't Australian or from this part of the world, Rolf Harris was like he's kind of like Bill Cosby or Jimmy Savile in a way. Of course, you Americans, you don't get off that easily. You have Bill Cosby. You also have that fella Phil something or other who's a record producer and goes around shooting people. He died in prison from COVID. Now, that's not to say that everyone who dies of COVID is a scumbag who shot someone. No, it's unfortunate that you get lumped in with him now, with Phil what's-his-face. He wore wigs a lot. Right into his old age, he went around in different wigs every day. He produced all sorts of shit in the 60s and 70s. He was known for his wall of sound. He used to make a wall of sound. He'd say, there's some sound, I'm going to turn it into a wall. Not a soundproof wall. Quite the opposite. So he got his wall of sound. It was fine. Well, then he got to the 2000s or thereabouts, and he shot someone and he went to jail. And then he got COVID in jail and made a full recovery. But then he got COVID in jail again and then he died. I don't think he was sentenced to get COVID. No. Although I wouldn't be surprised with you Americans. Some of your states there, you go, oh, let's fry him. Let's fry him. Let's give him COVID, or let's fry him, or let's shoot him in the head. You never know. You never know. I don't think he was sentenced to COVID, though. Mother Nature did that. Again, that's unfortunate, because if you are someone who died of COVID, you get lumped in with him now. And you're clearly not him. You're not Phil, what's his name? What the hell is that Phil Yerma? His name probably doesn't really matter that much, does it? Either way, if you're curious, look up Phil, record producer, shot someone, wigs. It'll come up. Anyway, I think we're approaching the end of the program. So bye-bye.